So, when it comes to Facebook marketing for small or medium-sized businesses, getting the maximum ROAS for your ad spend is crucial for your long-term success and overall financial well-being. However, for many business owners out there, navigating Facebook ads can be challenging since the platform does operate pretty differently from any other popular advertising outlet like Google Ads or even retail. That being said, there are two ways of advertising on the platform that come also with two core issues. Issue number one is highest volume bidding. This is the default across pretty much every single ad platform out there, whether it's TikTok, Snapchat, Google, and so forth. And if you're using automatic bidding for your Facebook advertising campaigns, it means that your creative content will drain your budget regardless of how effective it might be. Now, this becomes a problem because if they continue to consistently fail or don't perform to the standards that you need them to, they will burn a lot of money in the process. Now, the second problem is the second way of advertising, which is through cost controls or cost caps, but they also have their limitations. With cost caps, you won't spend if the creative content isn't compelling enough or if the algorithm doesn't believe that it can hit the CPA that you have set it. Now, the issue here is the inability to produce the volume of creatives necessary to spend your forecasted budget. If you have a new business with almost no data on your account, it's very likely that your cost cap campaigns probably won't spend much at all, if anything. Now, the problem is here with these two challenges, if that does play out and consistent underperformance does happen, this can put small to medium-sized businesses in a very financially sensitive position. The only solution here is testing various ads and creatives, but this approach does require you to have capital and money. And when most agencies out there are charging 4 to 10K for 10 to 20 great performance ads, and influencers are charging 1 to 3K for 10 ads, cost efficiency can become a problem and a difficult task. That is, however, a difficult task if you don't know how to run ads in the most effective way possible. Now, in this video, we'll be going over an A to Z guide on how to best set up your ads and creatives for the highest possible chance of success. And if you're a small business, a medium business, then you'll probably find this very valuable for you to go ahead and then try to replicate. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Arsalan, founder of AKM-Media, and we help grow, scale, and invest in the DTC businesses that we love. So with that being said, let's dive in to today's video. Now, the first thing to remember is understanding why your creative really does matter in today's market, especially as you go into 2025 and 2026. Dealing with underperforming ad content doesn't just impact your conversion rate. It has a domino effect that makes overall monthly forecasting underperform as well, putting you in a serious bind or situation with your advertising budget. To add to this, ineffective ads can result in a loss of visibility in Facebook's algorithm, a significant concern for any businesses relying on Facebook ads as their main volume driver for sales on conversions on the e-commerce store. The ultimate solution? A systematic approach on how you can create Facebook ad campaigns that not only facilitate and allow you to have a high volume of great ad creatives without depleting your budget. And that is precisely the step-by-step guide that we will be talking about in this video. We'll walk through all the steps that you need to craft high converting Facebook ads so that you can replicate this repeatedly over and over and over again so that you can drive traffic to your business or page more effectively than before and give yourself the highest chance of finding ads that actually are worth spending on. Now, in part one, I'll be going over how to find your persona, which talks about the voice, the jobs to be done, and the different circumstances that this might happen in. How to effectively conduct customer interviews, because this is a huge process in finding your persona, and the importance and application of layering personas as you do this. In part two of this video, we'll be talking about creating an offer that sells, which goes into utilizing merchandising to promote the right products so that you make the most of your budget, and techniques to enhance the perceived purchase value of your store or brand. Part three, that's all about creative strategy. We'll also go into mastering ad scripts and how to do those briefs correctly and effectively testing your ads. We'll also be diving into understanding ad iterations, how you can leverage them, and in part four, the economical approaches for the best way of producing ad creatives, discovering the top methods that we use at AKM to create affordable yet compelling ad creatives, which is the whole purpose of this video. So, part 1. How to find your customer persona. Now, when creating a persona for digital marketing, we start with finding the voice of our target audience. These are typically unusual, specific terms that your target demographic uses, which then you can use in your messaging to resonate better with your audience. I'll give you an example. Rage quitting. It's a word that in itself probably doesn't mean much to anyone, but in the gaming world, that demographic, it's in their vocabulary. Therefore, an ad incorporating this kind of terminology will resonate better with its target audience, thereby outperforming its competitors or other ads. If you want to dive in a little bit deeper into the psychology of the voice of your customer, I highly recommend the research paper that we'll link below in the description. Worth reading, worth understanding. Next up, you need to determine jobs to be done. So consider your product or service as the tool that your customers hire to fulfill a task. For example, companies that manufacture drilling equipment. A customer doesn't typically buy a drill because they need a drill, but because they need to make a hole in the wall, right? A task that the drill can then accomplish. Similarly, identifying the job that your product fulfills for your buyers is crucial. So we need to figure out, why do they need to drill that hole in the wall for your brand? Now, the last piece of our equation comes down to their circumstances. In other words, why do they need to put a hole in the wall to begin with? If you can understand the reasons and the situations in which your customers need the job to be done, then you can craft an ad creative and a messaging angle that speaks to them in such an engaging and relatable way. So how do you put this formula to work? Now, in our approach, we begin examining your e-commerce brand in its entirety. For example, the email list of all your customers on Shopify, compiling a list of the most devoted customers, the most repeat purchases, and so forth. We identify those who came and loved the product multiple times. And I highly recommend you do the same. Because with this information, we begin to contact these loyal customers and request time to set up an interview with them. Yeah, an interview, like a real interview. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to just offer them an incentive, such as a $50 or $100 gift card in exchange for their time and assistance in expanding your brand. These interviews are probably the most important process for understanding your persona. Now, in these interviews, we ask a lot of key questions that you'll need to find the answers to. Some of these factors or questions include, what is the functional need and does it meet that need for your customer? What emotional need does it fulfill for them? Does it fulfill any social needs for them in the first place, if at all? And how does it help with their circumstances? On top of that, what are their top 2 pain points before purchasing the product and what made them buy the product? Within the interviews, we also find out what demographics do they belong to, and are there any other benefits that you may not have realized that they bought the product for? What kind of sticky language stood out to them when they bought it? And did they have an objection to the product when buying it? One of the final key things that we look at is what kind of behaviors did they experience before buying the product and then after they bought the product. And remember, the goal of these interviews is to gather as many detailed insights as possible on your customer and the persona of that customer. If a customer's response is ambiguous or just dull, dive deeper. The stronger the persona, the more effective your ad creative will be, and consequently, the more conversions you'll get at a cheaper cost per purchase. Now, a lot of you might be asking, how do you know if your interview was good? Well, after you conclude all of your customer interviews and after you get all of the data that you need for your product's target audience, how can you decide whether the interview was very efficient or good in the first place? Well, we found that the best way to determine this is to look at the interview in comparison to all the others that you conducted and see if any of the same answers come up. For instance, if you did 7 interviews and 5 of them shared the same functional problem, that should tell you that that is a solid job to be done to make that your persona on the creatives that you'll later develop. Now, on average, a successful interview with the right customer will give you about 20 different angles that you can work with for future ad creatives. And every 5 interviews should give you at least 1 clear job to be done. The more jobs to be done that you can find, the better you can position yourself for stronger creatives. And of course, you'll likely discover several potential personas during the interview process. And that's the best part. You don't have to settle for just one persona in your ad creative. Instead, you can use what we call layering personas, as I mentioned at the start, or targeting multiple personas in different ad creatives throughout the different stages of awareness. This brings us to part 2. creating an offer that really sells to that customer. Now, at this point, you've already done the work, you've done the interviews, you did the time, and you got the data that you need on your buyer persona and identifying numerous angles for your ad campaigns. Now it's time to devise an offer aimed at converting those potential customers. Now, the initial step is understanding the product you should be promoting in the first place. So let's say you have an e-commerce store with multiple products and you're running ads for each one. If you can learn to allocate your advertising dollars effectively, you can start pushing the high converting campaigns and move the money away from the ones that don't actually give you the results that you need, whether that be on the cost of goods side or on the creatives. And that's where you can begin to merchandise your store. Now, finding out which of your products solve the most problems and hit your customer's avatar or persona, and at the same time, create a bundle or an offering around one or multiple products that can fit that customer persona is the goal. And the goal is to increase the perceived value of your products. Now, evergreen offers that link back to your homepage, for example, like the classic buy one, get one 20% off, or bundling your bestsellers with the products that you want to cross-sell that make the most sense and that should improve AOV too. And ultimately, you need to understand that the real goal here is using these to increase your AOV, your average order value, and your lifetime value. And with that in mind, you can create a value proposition that increases the amount your customers are ordering and keeps them coming back for more. Here's a great example of how you can do this effectively. Now, suppose you're a brand that sells workout supplements, and within that, your pre-workout powder is the most popular product. However, you also have a protein powder that doesn't generate that many sales, but you want to be selling more of it because you need to get rid of stock or whatever reason it might be. So you get an idea. To enhance your AOV and LTV, you could offer a small sample of your protein powder with every purchase of your bestseller, which is your pre-workout supplement. Now, this tactic not only heightens the perceived value of that top-selling product to the customer when they purchase, so it might help with things like conversion rate, but it also increases the likelihood that they are now going to return to buy more of your protein powder in the future because you just got them to try a product that might have tasted great or was a great product that just wasn't getting enough attention for whatever reason. And this brings us to part 3. The creative strategy. Now, the foundation of high converting Facebook ads, meta ads, whatever you want to call them, start at a structured approach on how to test in this hierarchy. The first thing you want to do is you want to test your value propositions, which value propositions actually work. Then you test the angles on the winning value propositions. And finally, you test the ad formats on the winning angles. Now, we actually have a video talking about creatives in depth. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go ahead and click that link and watch that first before you continue this. So first up, the value proposition. Now, this aspect of the process is pretty self-explanatory since it just deals with the persona and offers that we established in the first step, which is also known as the value proposition. Now, in the context of ads, your ad copy, the creative itself, the messaging, it all encompasses the right wording and tone used to present your product to the right persona. For example, if you sell ground coffee, your value proposition might emphasize that your product boosts your customers' energy levels, thus making this the feature and the focal point of all your messaging. Now, next up after that is the angle. Now, the angle of your ad creative is essentially the presentation style of your value proposition. Example, it's essentially shedding a different light on the same value proposition, or how many ways can you say the same thing in a different way to different cohorts of customers, age ranges, male, female, and so forth. Now, if I take this back to the coffee example, one angle for a coffee brand, it might be emphasizing that it enables a customer to enjoy more of their favorite activities. A slogan such as "Jumpstart Your Heart" could be a potential angle. It's actually a pretty good one. And the more you experiment with these potential ad angles for your ad campaigns, the more you'll understand which targeting options resonate with your audience. Now, that data and that knowledge allows you to produce a higher volume of ad creatives with varying customer groups in mind, and at the same time increase the chances that your creatives will actually do well rather than throwing stuff against the wall and hoping that it works. And finally, you get down to the ad formats. Just like with other social media platforms, the ad formats or the ad types that you use in Facebook can significantly influence your campaign success. Now, every aspect from visuals, copywriting, contributes to your format and the different types of ads that you can make. For example, The sequence will be very different for a carousel ad versus a boomerang ad, versus a split screen ad, versus a UGC ad, and so forth. We actually have a video covering 75 different types of ad formats, so if you missed that, I do recommend you check that out because it was golden. Now, once you have this data and information at your disposal, you can now systematically brainstorm value propositions and ad angles for your products. We can then compile all of that data into a spreadsheet if we want to, categorize by different products, facilitating easy reference while conducting A/B tests on potential value propositions, angles, ad formats, and eventually you will find your winners very quickly. Now, some of our top methods for collecting data for the right audiences include interviews, which we already discussed before, Reddit and Twitter, amazing platforms. If you haven't followed me on Twitter, make sure you go ahead and do so. Google reviews on competitor brands and even your own customer reviews. Online communities are a big one, or groups related to your product. You can find a lot of niche information on persona, on language, on what they like, what they don't like. And after you've done this extensive and tedious research, and yes, don't expect that step to be easy, by the way. You should have a sheet which is filled with ad concepts and raw ideas and sentiments expressed by your target demographics about your product, which you can convert into creatives and angles and value propositions and so forth. And if you've organized this data correctly, the left column of your sheet should just basically contain value proposition after value proposition after value proposition. And this process of converting these concepts then into ad angles is where your creativity and experience play crucial roles. However, I will say that just by doing that exercise alone and developing those personas, you're already ahead of 90% of the competition. And therefore, the probability that you're going to have a higher chance at winning on meta ads is a lot higher. Which then brings us on to sort of like a bonus step, which is writing engaging ad scripts. Now, getting your Facebook campaign in front of the right audience is only half the battle. Now, to genuinely stand out of the newsfeed or the platform, you need to have engaging ad copy, engaging creatives, engaging ad formats that get people to click on the call to action, whatever that might be. So whether you're working with a digital marketing agency, a freelance copywriter, or an in-house creative team, having as many details in your script brief as possible is one of the best ways to ensure that you get the highest quality of eye-catching copy and creatives that your ad will need. Now, we actually have an example template that we use to brief scripts with for image ads, and I'll include that on the screen somewhere right now so you guys can go ahead and pause and copy it. Now, once you have a few ad creatives ready for testing, you can follow our guide for running effective angle testing or ad format testing right here. Now, this approach basically enhances ad targeting by enabling a systematic way of testing ad performance instead of taking a gamble with your budget, which brings us to testing new creatives and iterations. Creating optimization systems is crucial for your campaign success because it's no good just finding something that works. You need to be able to double down and iterate on it and replicate it more and more and more. And even more so important for brands that have multiple products. That's why when we're starting out, we typically suggest splitting your ad testing budget 50-50 between new creatives and then iterations, which simplifies the process a lot in determining which variables are working for and which are not. And as you scale and you begin to repeat this, we typically change this split to more of an 80-20, 20% towards new creatives, 80% towards iterating on what's already worked. Now, the structure that you use to test these Facebook ads depends on your method of ad buying or media buying, which we also mentioned at the start of the video. And it's either going to be highest volume bidding or cost cap bidding. Now, for highest volume bidding, this option, we start with a basic ABO structure. I'll have an image on the screen right now if you want to pause and dive into the structure, but this is typically how we do it. From there, we break down each value proposition or angle down into one ad set, and then all the ad sets contain 3 unique ads, which are basically 3 variations of the same creative targeting or the specific value proposition that we want to be going after, or the angle or the ad format being tested at the ad set level. This then allows us to examine each variable individually and enhance the overall optimizations that we'll do in the future for those ad creatives. After that, we create new ad sets for every variable we're testing, whether you're testing a value proposition, an angle, or an ad format. And again, image on the screen right now if you want to go ahead, pause it, and try to replicate it for yourself on your own ad account. Now, the second way, if you're using manual bidding and if you're using cost caps, is the structure, again, that's on the screen right now, so you can pause, but this process differs a little bit. Instead, we like to use a CBO, which is a campaign budget optimization campaign, and we have 2 ad sets for different target audiences, followed by 3 unique ads for the ad sets themselves. Now, within the audiences and ad sets, we typically have a broad ad set or an audience, and this will be the entirety of a country or just filtered by male or female demographic, depends on your product. The second ad set, we typically make it a lookalike stack. So we take all of the pixel behavior from purchasers, page engages, landing page views, and so forth. We stack as much data of that on those lookalikes as possible together. And then we also do interest stacks, or even both combined in these 2 sometimes, just to make sure that we give ourselves the highest possible chance for our audiences to learn and then go into broad for better efficiency and scale. But the reason why we do all of this in a CBO is because when we have a broad audience within a CBO, along with lookalikes, along with interest stacks, etc., whatever purchases come in, the algorithm will automatically look for those type of customers, specifically the ones that come in through lookalikes or interest-based stacks, and look for them in the broad audience because that is the biggest audience size you have by impressions. It's also the audience where Facebook can spend the most, and naturally what's going to happen is it's going to start looking for those customer in what we call an intelligent lookalike rather than just shotgun on the wall approach broad. And just as the ABO structure for highest volume, we also have 3 ads testing 3 different variations of the same creative. So whether we're trying to test the value prop, the angle, or the ad format. And again, image on the screen right now if you want to stop and try replicate it for your own ad account today. Now, one of the last parts here is how to work with ad iterations. Understanding how to leverage your ad iterations can be a game changer if you're looking to improve your creative metrics. Ad iterations usually just involve changing one variable of your creative strategy, which can then help enhance Facebook ad conversions for creatives that are just performing okay, but haven't reached their highest potential or the ROAS that they could have. Now, doing this and mastering ad iterations is also a really effective way to reduce your spending costs, because tweaking one aspect of an ad campaign is usually a lot more cost effective than producing a brand new ad or a concept altogether. And it also helps to keep your cost per click low. Now, in this video, you can use our ad checklist to help guide you. And depending on the creative metric needs that need improvement, you basically just have these 3 to choose from. Now, one being the thumb stop, or the hook rate as some people call it. And this is typically the first 2 to 3 seconds of your ad itself. And this might be one of the benchmarks that you need to improve if that thumb stop is not very high. So anything, let's say under 25%. The next one is your average playtime or your hold rate. Now, typically we're looking at 7 to 9 seconds. Now, if you're not in that 7 to 9 second or above range, then maybe something happening between 3 seconds and onwards is just not resonating with your audience. So the next step might be to improve that. And the last part is your click-through rate, which just basically means that the call to action is not strong enough and it doesn't make people want to click onto the landing page and so forth. So that might be one of the variables you need to fix. Now, the reason I tell you about those 3 things is because you might need to tweak certain aspects of an ad, not necessarily the entire ad. If you have a high thumb stop or a high hook rate, for example, but then a low average watch time, that is lost potential. You found a hook that works with the messaging and your customer persona, but something after that 3-second mark just doesn't do it for people. So rather than making a brand new ad, you keep the same first 3 seconds and you replace what happens afterwards, and then you see if you had an improvement or not. And these 3 metrics that I just went over work in a hierarchy order, meaning if you improve the thumb stop, you're going to have a higher average watch time anyways, and if you have those 2, you're going to have a higher click-through rate by default. So improving one improves the other. Now, finally, part 4 of this video, economical ways of producing ad creatives. Discovering the top sort of hacks that we use, if you will, to create affordable yet compelling ad creatives for our brands and our clients. Now, by this point, you should have a foolproof strategy on creating Facebook ads that have the highest chances of converting. But if you want to further optimize your advertising cost, our team basically has a few crucial hacks, if you will, designed to help you produce ad creatives at scale for a surprisingly lower cost. Now, number 1 is splitting the budget 50-50. Now, by now, you've already learned that new ad creatives are a lot more expensive than creating iterations. So instead of using your entire budget on doing more research and creating new briefs and trying to come up with new concepts, split that budget evenly, especially at the start as a small to medium-sized business. Now, most of the time, producing an ad iteration only requires a video or a photo editor, which our team already does in-house. So that already saves a lot of money. And this way you can reserve the rest of your budget for specific ad campaigns such as retargeting or targeting custom audiences even. Now, the second way is ask for the raw videos. Now, there'll be a lot of people out there that will use freelancers, that will use actors, UGC creators, and so forth, and they'll hire and commission these creators to produce videos or ad content. Now, you typically pay for the whole thing to be edited as one package. What we propose and what we always do is we make sure that not only do we get the finalized video, but we also get the raw video, because in the raw video, we can create so many different ad iterations based on what we want to do. What we typically actually do is we'll get one creator to make a full finalized ad as the foundation of our creative. And next, we'll get a second person that will be a different creator, but at the same time, we'll ask them to produce maybe only 10 5-second clips that contain unique angles that we want to test. So now we have one full ad, we have a person that has given us 10 potential different hooks, and we're going to test what works based on the ad persona and what resonates with our customer that time of year or based on the offer that we have. And as a result, by mixing and matching one full-length ad with a bunch of different hooks being tested by potentially a different person or the same person, we can, instead of having 1 or 2 raw files, we can have 20 separate creatives made out of it just by having the raw files and the finalized creatives. The last point here is kind of self-explanatory, but having editors that can create good ad variations. For example, what we talked about earlier, you might have an ad that has a great hook that works well, combining that ad with something that has a great average play time, and then another ad that maybe has a great CTR, which means it had a great call to action. We can combine it based on the data and quickly generate new numbers of creatives just by having the same raw content or original content. And again, there's images on the screen right now which you can pause and kind of use these briefs to help you make those ad creatives and variations. So, my final thoughts. Now, our mission is to assist small businesses in the e-commerce space by maximizing their ROAS for high crafted and high converting Facebook ads so that you can boost your profitability. Now, to achieve this, as we've discussed in the video, we've developed our signature systematic approach for using data and then using shortcuts in the industry, which allow us to create an abundance of ad variations and volume to test with the best chances of results. Now, if you're a brand out there in the e-com space that is a little bit stuck, just reach out to our team. We do free e-commerce ad audits all the time, every single week. And if we won't work together, we'll at least point you in the right direction on what you should fix. And that's it. That's our guide on how to create the most effective ads for small to medium-sized businesses without having to spend a lot of money to test and find things and waste a lot of money at the same time. If you found this video useful, my name is Arsalan once more, founder of AKM. We help grow, scale, and invest in the DTC businesses that we love. If you got confused by anything, leave a comment down below. And if you found this valuable, make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe for more of our content in the future. My name is Arsalan once again, and I'll see you guys on the next video.